John.
Yeah, no.
Okay, could the two of us just put us in the stream for the start?
Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
How's everyone doing? This is Kareem. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. I am your host, Kareem Bowen, and I have with me, as you see, those of you in social media land, my producer, John B. in the place to be. What's good, John?
Hello. It's weird. You're remote. You're out of the studio today.
I am out of the studio today, but it is not it is not to my own liking or doing. We're going to bring someone else into the studio. We'll have a quick chat as to why we are doing this thing remotely. You are in the studio, but my guy, co-host Mark Bassett, is also remotely at home. And I want to say two of these things are kind of similar. Two of these things are kind of the same. But one of these things isn't like the other. Now it's time to play our game. Remember that from Sesame Street? So those of you who are out there, can you wonder why Mark and I are at home? I had an exposure, a COVID exposure, and so I'm waiting for my results to come in. And I thought the most, responsible thing to do was to stay home until I found out my results. It's kind of like what they expect us to do. And my guy Mark, of course, never to leave, never to be outdone. What's your reason, Mark?
I tested positive this weekend for COVID. I wouldn't have tested other than, to be honest, because the symptoms were so mild. I thought I was having allergies, but we were going to have dinner with some friends of ours, parents who are basically 90. So I finally decided, okay, I'll take a test, and it was positive. So,
and to be clear, Mark, I also, I have zero symptoms whatsoever. But the person that gave me the exposure thought that they just had some sinus sniffles and didn't really count it much and found out the same thing. So this thing is still around. It's not going anywhere. We're going to have to deal with it.
It probably won't. It's like the Spanish flu, which has continued to evolve 100 years later, and it's called the flu now. So
and eventually we'll learn to deal with how this thing operates. It was funny. I'm going to say this now because I think it's funny. We were having a text conversation. We were talking about this, and it abruptly ended. And I was sitting there saying to myself, Mark is probably like, dang, Kareem is mad at me. But no, when we think about COVID, and I'm going to bring, because this is one of the things that's hot off the press, this new thing called monkeypox. What the heck? Now we have COVID strain number 52, monkeypox now in the air. And at first I thought it was just like, okay, if this is just, something that is contracted or, men having sex with men okay, we're out. But then they're saying like, you can't touch anything that they touched. It's transferred through materials or whatever. I don't know what all of the details are, or through, body fluid, saliva. I don't know. But I was just sitting here thinking to myself, like, where are we going? Is this the new wave? We have no pandemics really for forever, and then all of a sudden we're just getting one after the other. What are you guys doing with all of this stuff? How are you processing this stuff? John, you're the young guys. This is the world that you're going to inherit.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I don't know. It's one of those. I think it's being blown a little bit out of proportion. I think it's interesting to see where the hot spots are in terms of infection and all that. And I think it's worth tracking. It's worth keeping an eye on and going, okay, where's this going? But I don't think we're going to reach anywhere near COVID levels of transmissibility and infection.
Monkeypox now? Is that what you're talking about, Jonathan? Or
yeah, that's what we're on to.
Yep.
I'm hoping that's the case. Why does the United States not know how to sit down in a corner and take a 10-minute break? It seems like everything that comes here, we're not used to. I think one thing is we're not used to a lifestyle with pandemics or disease that is with communicable spread the way in the manner that we're seeing. But it just seems like when it gets to the United States, we're going to be the leader in the number of cases because we're not going to sit down. We're not going to quarantine, but we're going to have to deal with this. And so it's kind of interesting now. Mark, to your point that you made earlier, we cannot continue stop, go.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's this thing, like, again, without a doubt, COVID was a very serious issue.
is Mark, because we're both
Was.
home because of it.
Yeah, but at some point now, it's continued to dilute itself. It's kind of more contagious. I mean, what's interesting is like I had 3 people at Christmas in this house have COVID. I was sleeping with one of them, my wife, and I've never gotten it before, and I've been doubly vaccinated and everything else, and I picked it up, I'm assuming, in Chicago at the Golden Globe convention.
So there's a whole bunch of old people running around with Santas that are probably COVID positive, Mark.
Positive, but but theoretically, and I'm quarantining for 5 days with, in essence, no symptoms whatsoever other than a slight cough. And at some point, the country can't continue to like send people home for 5 days to quarantine because they have a slight cough. It's really, not good. So,
Mark, I'm getting responses from on my personal line saying that my conspiracy theorists, they said that this is all stuff that the government's well aware of and they know about it before it becomes the outbreaks. And so they put it out there, I guess, to control population, to control what we're doing, to prepare us to finally get the big shot in the arm. I'm not sure what the reason is, but I thought that was an interesting take on things.
Well, we have had government mandated vaccinations before. I remember lining up when I was in grade school to get vaccinations at school. So, but anyway.
Do they still do that? I mean, I would imagine the kids have to have
certain
vaccinations
shots
before they
you have
go.
to have certain shots, and so I don't know why. I mean, I guess I do know why people were so freaked out about it during COVID because it was just so rushed, not super tested or anything else. But it's not like most people haven't lived through kind of forced vaccinations before. We have, so.
We forget about those things that we did with kids and for our kids when we were younger. But anyways, it is the way of the world. It is where we are going. It is what we're dealing with. Jenny DeMoore here in our social media stream says, I coughed one day in the store and the people went the other way. It was a cough.
Yeah, I was on a plane and I'm afraid to cough because I'm afraid people are going to just freak out.
I'm not gonna lie. I was somewhere one day and this lady started hacking, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, let me get away from her. She's ground zero." But we have to be aware. And so the thing that I was before we came online, Mark, the thing that I was saying is I've heard so many people who are least likely to be infected or affected by being contagious or catching COVID often say, well, it's just a few people, we got to get back to normal. But there are a million people who have died. Mm-hmm. And for those million people, there are millions more who love and are connected to them. And so just out of the empathy, I'm big on being empathetic with people with where they are. It is a true thing. We have to continue to move forward. But I'm going to tell you, when those numbers go up in our community, I think that it behooves us all to make sure that we self-mask. I know that I do. And I do that because I have a mom with a compromised immune system. I have a brother who is diabetic. I'm around seniors who have compromised immune systems all of the time. People who have had heart surgeries and brain surgery. So we have to be aware of other people other than just ourselves in a community, Mr. Bassett.
I agree.
So that was my statement.
By the way, I've never seen inside your home. It looks like a castle over there. With all
not a castle.
Candelabra there behind everything. So, wow.
All right. As we continue this show, for those who are listening, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. For those of you who are listening on WJOL down there in Joliet, Illinois, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Those who are here with us right here at WSGW, 790 AM and 100.5, you can always come back and listen to these in their entirety. We believe, if not, we're going to make sure that you can really soon via our social media platforms. Always go to United Shades of Gray or WSGW, and you can find us here. All right, I want to get into some things. Yesterday was not Super Tuesday, but it was Primary Tuesday. His home is beautiful. Trust me. No one asked you to throw that out there. We certainly thank you, Mom. But we want, I want to just get your opinion, Mark, your thoughts As we sit here, this is now Wednesday, the day after primary Tuesday. It's finally come to a close. Politics drive me crazy, but I can't seem to stop talking about them like everyone else. What can we glean from what we saw yesterday, Mark? And I'm not sure if you've paid much attention to what's going on.
No,
But
not too much. It was actually the first time in my life, though, Kareem, to be honest, that I voted.
because you're at home, probably.
Well, no, that I voted in a primary. I usually don't vote in a primary. And, I've usually have kind of made fun of single issue voters, but I've become a bit of a single issue voter. I'm voting for against anyone that Trump is backing. So, and so I went to the primary to vote against Trump-backed candidates or people that align themselves to Trump as best I can. And I'm not sure how. I don't think I won a single primary vote that I voted for. So, but anyway.
No, because that was going to be the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about today. Being you are a Republican. You said that. I've told people that I'm an independent. I don't really align with the Democratic or the Republican Party. Maybe I'm going to be a Yanger, a person of the Yang gang, and be a part of this new, was it Forward Party,
Forward America or something?
Yeah. Forward America Party or whatever it is. But I wanted to ask you that question because I was looking at something that was showing all of the candidates that Donald Trump, the former president, had backed. And he didn't do so bad. He won more than he lost.
Yeah, well, I think it's a few things in my mind. Number one, people who are on the kind of the extremes of both parties are typically the ones that come to primaries. And so I think, people on the fringes are going to come out, and those are typically his candidates. I think number two, I think he is being selective on who he endorses, people who are in the league. I was reading.
We're going to win anyways.
Yeah. I read this thing this morning where there were two Trumpers, both named Eric. And he basically said, I support Eric. And then he called both of them to say, I supported you. This dude is playing games around that as well. So I don't put much stock in it personally. So
go ahead, John, because I saw John pop back up. Whenever John comes to the screen, he's got something to say. What's going on, John?
When we're talking about the Trump endorsements, we were talking about this yesterday at a news event I was at. He hopped on the endorsement train at the 11th hour. He looked and he saw where all the canvassers were going, and he said, all right, this one will make me look like a winner.
Yeah.
He hopped on that train.
Hey, me and Donald have something in common, probably for the first time. I hate to lose too, Donald. I don't blame you. Wait till you find out who's going to win and then throw your hat in the ring. But I was just curious as to how they look. And then also we saw in the state of Kansas. Kansas is one of the first states, with the Supreme Court. Jenny DeMore in social media said that he's a troll. He's trolling people to find out who's going to win, and then he endorses them. I got you, Jen. But I think in Kansas, we see something that I think is going to be really important, especially in these midterm elections coming up, with Roe v. Wade being overturned and no longer really sitting at the Supreme Court. Much of what's going to happen is now going to turn and roll back to the states, which means governors, as never before, the governorships are going to be so vitally important for people, no matter which way you see this, if you're for or against abortion. And in Kansas, we saw, which is really a red, if we were talking about red and blue states, I know this is United Shades of Gray, no red or blue, but if we're talking about red states, Kansas is probably one of the most red states in the union, with about a 2-to-1 margin, I think, of Republicans and Democrats. And we see an overwhelming, I think about 60% of the people that were there, really close to 60%, voted to keep some semblance of Roe v. Wade, or some semblance to access to abortions. Mark, what do you think those types of things, do they mean anything? Does this show us where we are in terms of, I think it kind of speaks more we the people versus politics, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's the same thought you just had. Again, it's it'll be just interesting to watch. Again, because I have mixed feelings, kind of like you, and generally I'm not supportive of abortions other than extreme cases. And so it's a tough issue, and it'll just be interesting, I think, to see how this plays out. I think generally speaking, it's been in place for so long that most younger generations do view it as kind of okay, or that they should have just standard practice and have access to it. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, I think.
Okay, well, I think what it shows is that, and we saw this in the numbers. You're a data guy, Mark, and we saw that in the numbers that the majority of the country did not want it overturned, but would like some control. And this is how I feel about the whole issue we talked about guns. I know you hate guns. I like guns. My family loves guns. We've grown up around them, but I think that there needs to be some restraints around how we have access to those. And I'm not an abortion. I am a pro-lifer. If I write life, I'm not. But I think that women should retain people should be able to do what they want to do. They're going to do it anyways. And so I kind of feel the same way. And so I think the majority of America thinks that there should be some access, certain cases that require or should allow it to happen. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. This coming political season, I am not looking forward to. Because I think it is going to just be so politicized and so divisive that once again I'll be erasing friends and people from my Rolodex.
Even the primary, I've never seen it before in Midland. For God's sakes, the state representative, it was pretty divisive, and ended up in a lawsuit against both candidates.
So we'll see what
crazy.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to interview them, and so it was interesting that later I saw that come up. But I also do want to talk. Speaking of this, Mark, what's going on in Washington D.C.? We see the January 6th Commission's investigation, and this is people are on one side or another, and facts. I don't know if they exist to people anymore. But now we're talking.
How anyone cannot see that as just horribly wrong, and not the commission itself, but the January 6th, that how people can deny that was wrong, and that frankly helped instigate. Whether he was the mastermind behind it or not, he certainly threw fuel on the fire.
And that's the issue that I've had. There's a lot of things that I can really respect about the Democratic Party. I think the government has been a key ingredient in keeping Black people under. Through some of these social programs that have existed. That is one of the things that I think that I truly believe in, that the Republican Party stands for, how those welfare parties have actually hurt communities instead of doing other things that we could have benefited from. But what I'm looking at when I see this is, how in the world are we now not our government norms, the things that we depend on to be a nation. We can just delete files from high-ranking officials.
Oh, I know. Well, I think it was well said. This guy from Ohio, Jordan, I think I always forget his first name. Jim Jordan, is it?
Jim Jordan.
Basically said, to me, it was just the quote of what's wrong, that he wishes that there would be no bipartisanship. He's disappointed in fellow Republicans that have supported legislation that originated from Joe Biden. And I don't know which legislation he was referring to in that particular quote, but I think that's what's in essence at the key of what's wrong with politics today, that there's no willingness to find a common ground and compromise to do what's right for the country. It's the straight us versus them. So if a Democrat has an idea, de facto, you can't support it, and it's wrong.
Well, what I thought was funny is Senator Joe Manchin from Virginia. He's been striking down every idea the Democrats have come up with. But then he goes and he comes up with his own bill, which I think is more fiscally responsible. It supposedly is good for the debt. And so there is some buy-in. And so I want to be a part of the party. Now, I know they are all listening in to our show, Mark. So I'm speaking to both the Democrats and the Republicans to let you know that I want to be a part of the party who is on the side of the ideas that further America's agenda. It is not about Democratic, Republican, red, blue. It is about putting together policies and things that move America forward. And it's about really speaking to what is best for the majority of America. And we got to get away from this 5%, 1% thing. And so that is where I am. That's what I'm voting for. That's what I want to see happen. All right. For those of you who are out there and listening to this conversation, either live or are going to hear this on Sunday and it's play either here in Michigan or Illinois, we just want to give a shout out to Bill Russell Bill Russell, an iconic basketball player, along with Nichelle Nichols, Lieutenant Uhura, I think it's how you pronounce it, from
Uhura.
Uhura.
I loved that show. That was my favorite show as a kid.
Star Trek?
Yeah.
So you're a Trekkie. Would you consider yourself a Trekkie? Did you say yes?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was like, I actually, Mr. Spock was my idol growing up.
Mark, as soon as I heard, turn the TV. I hated Star Trek.
Oh, man, that was awesome.
Mr. Spock, Dr. Spock, or whoever, I hated Star Trek.
Lieutenant Uhura and Captain Kirk had the first interracial kiss, I believe, on television.
Absolutely. She was groundbreaking by the fact that they were able to do that in a time when it was not popular whatsoever, shattering ceilings and barriers and all kinds of things. And so we want to give a special shout out to her and to for breaking ground in entertainment. And then also Bill Russell, as I said, he is an iconic basketball player. Not only a basketball player, but I've had the opportunity to meet Bill a couple times during All-Star weekends, and he was also a gentleman and a civil rights activist. Both of them were activists in making changes that would eventually open up doors and create opportunities for other young Blacks. So for Bill, it was interesting. He and the Celtics. What? How many rings? 10 rings?
13, wasn't it? I forget.
13 rings, 11 rings. 8 of them were back to something crazy. 8 back-to-back champ. Who does that?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a different time and place, but yeah, I mean, that's crazy. They had, and there wasn't the, players didn't move around as much as they do now, so they were able to keep the core of their team together for a long time.
You couldn't, but you every basket you made 2 points per basket.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know, no 3-pointers.
No 3-pointers. At some point, I think during the career, they made it where they couldn't dunk because they were so dominant in what they were doing. So it's interesting, but he and Miss Nichols, both of them had interactions with Dr. King and his instruction and gave them wisdom and insight on how to handle their careers and really to fight for what they were doing. Lieutenant Uhura was going to quit at one point, and Dr. King was like, "Look, you have the first characterization of a Black woman on television where you're not somebody's maid or nanny or a secretary. You're a lieutenant. You got
communications officer. The communications officer on the deck."
Yeah, so it was really kind of cool to see them. I mean, 88 or 89 and 88 years respectively. Beautiful lives that they've lived. They were so impactful, and it was just great to have had them here to experience the things that they brought to like people don't realize it, but they wouldn't feed the Celtics at one of the restaurants. There were a couple of guys, and you know how Boston can be, and Boston is even today it's still a racially charged city in some places, but they wouldn't feed a couple of the Celtics, and so they brought the whole team back and staged a boycott, a sit-in, and they refused to eat. And so that was one of the ways where he then became on the radar of Dr. King. And so it was an amazing opportunity that he just took and went for us. I think absolutely Jenny DeMoore in the social media stream, she worked for NASA. As a matter of fact, when she left, and we're talking about Miss Nichols, when she left from filming with Star Trek, she was asked by NASA to come out and to help on building a more diverse talent pipeline and to get more Black women and women in general into the space program. So you're absolutely right. She did work for NASA. We remember movies like Hidden Figures. Mark, you ever see Hidden Figures?
No, I don't think so, to be honest.
Man, Mark,
with the ladies that work for NASA, the mathematicians.
You gotta put it on. It's one of the movies that we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to get some Black films together. We're gonna just watch them all together.
We're working on a little film festival coming up, hopefully.
And we're gonna talk about that right after this commercial break. We're gonna take a break real quick, guys. And when we come back, we're gonna cap it off with this conversation on the film festival that Mark and I are working on feverishly, as well as we're going to get to our main conversation for today, which is we're going to talk about the importance of mentorship continued. And I have one of my most important mentors, most impactful mentors. So we're going to stick and stay. Don't go away. We'll be back with more United Shades of Gray. for those of you who are out there, we're going to bring into the stream in just a hot second. Brian, I know that you can hear us, I believe. We're going to bring you into the social media stream in just a second.
You're listening to United Shades of Grey on WSGW.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kareem Bowen. I am your host, and welcome to United Shades of Grey. We are deep in conversation. Thank you for tuning into the second portion of this. We're going to get right into some things. But before we get into our topic for today, which is we're going to continue on the importance or the impact of mentorship. And I'm going to bring one of my personal mentors, someone who has really mentored me and been a key piece of why I have been able to do what I've done, either good or bad. We'll bring them into the stream. But Mark, before we left for commercial break, man, you were talking about an event. We were here kind of organically talking on when we were talking about the scary movies. And I have not seen Nope. So Nope.
No, we got to go. Hopefully you test negative. Next week I'm free to go. We ought to go to a movie next week, Kareem.
We need to go see Nope. First week at the box office, Jason Peele. His movie Nope has 43 million. It was number one at the box office. That is astounding. A great feat, and to have a black director doing this with my favorite girl, Keke Palmer. I love her. The hardest working girl, as she says, always keeps the job. So it'll be great. But we talked about doing a blaxploitation film festival. I've talked with the powers that be. As we have been talking about Juneteenth earlier this year. I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity. So, Mark, we were talking about, so explain to them what we were talking about when we say a blaxploitation film festival.
Well, again, I'm assuming most people understand that it's a film genre from the early 70s, I think, primarily, early to mid to late 70s, black themed, black focused, primarily black actors as the heroes, and so really the star vehicles for the movies, kind of campy. Usually the black man
cheesy all day, all day.
Yeah, but it's it's an important genre, and so we were thinking about trying to put a small film festival together, maybe 2 or 3 films, and we thought it would be fun. People could come dressed up from characters from that era or dressed up in that era because the clothes were just so cool. And so we're working with some people to try to pull that off. I think hopefully during June this coming year, we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm excited about the opportunity. We'll keep you guys informed as that goes. And I'm looking at we're gonna bring in now to the studio. And John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, he is the voice in the sky.
Yes.
All right,
man
so
behind
John,
the curtain.
We want to see you come in with a big afro and some bell bottoms, maybe a paisley shirt,
platform shoes, man. You got to have
Definitely my
platforms.
Crushed
Remember
velvet.
Johnny Fuca? He had the platforms with the goldfish in the heel.
I'm going to get you, sucker. All right, so we're going to bring in. I want to thank you guys for humoring us, but we're going to get to the meat and the potatoes of our conversation on today, which is a really important conversation. We're going to continue it about mentorship. And I want to bring into our studio audience, Mr. B. Bowen, and all I see is an ear, I think. There he is.
I can't hear.
Okay, so he's having trouble hearing us. Okay, I'm not sure why that is, but if you could continue to work on that, I will try to make sure that we are able to get to him. But anyways, one of the things I wanted to do, and I wanted to bring him in, and I would probably
maybe he should try to call in just rather than
and that may be helpful. So if he could call in, that would be great. And so we're gonna have to have, if you could, John B, put that number in the stream, because of course I don't remember a number. I am a prima donna when it comes to the radio station. I want everyone else to push the button.
You're the talent. You shouldn't have to do anything.
I'm the talent. I'm the talent.
Yeah,
I'm Rick James. No, I'm just joking. But
Brian, check the private chat in the stream.
And so he's giving you some insight on what to do. And I'm going to send that
can't
number.
hear us. You can't hear what Jonathan just said, but that's a different story. But
Is that not funny at all? I mean, Jonathan, thank
maybe
you for
you can text him, Kareem.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send him the information,
Yeah.
and we can go from there. But Mark, we were talking about mentorship. We were talking about the importance of mentorship. And I just want some of the mentors. Who were your mentors and the individuals that were impactful in your life?
I have 3 or 4. I mean, again, most of my mentors are all kind of professional in nature when I think about that. Again, my early boss in R&D, a guy named Brian Keene. Another boss I had, Pat Gottschalk, was kind of more business. I think your other guest, I forgot her name last time, Professor, or maybe she wasn't a guest, but she was
Dr. Sabrina Black.
Yeah, exactly. Made a really great point. Someone I was mentoring became actually, in a lot of ways, I think, influenced me more than I influenced him in terms of kind of getting me to look at things differently. And so that's where those kind of relationships, you just go.
All right, and so one of the things that I've learned, and I'm glad you brought back Dr. Black's point. We were trying to make sure she could get here today, but she had to get in with a client, and so we're going to reach out to her again. She's a phenomenal woman who does a lot of mentorship, really, and so I think it's really cool. But one of the things that's really key is when she began to talk about how these are organic relationships. And how you have to have actual strong, kind of deep-rooted, relationships and a commitment to one another for mentorship to really be able to be effective. And so I wanted to bring Brian in, and I'm sure John is going to let us know when he has him in the studio.
Yep, we've got him.
Okay, and so Brian, even though we can't see you, which is funny to me, we want to. I want to ask a question. First of all, I want to introduce those of you who are listening to the social media, to this via the radio, and those of you watching via social media. You can't see him, but you're going to hear his voice. I want to introduce Brian Bowen. Notice the names are the same. Kareem Bowen, Brian Bowen. He is actually what I call my uncle brother. And for those of you who are not from the backwoods or not a part of some crazy family thing, I wanted to see him. Geraldine Bowen Walker says she wanted to see you. Unfortunately, that's not the case because he can't hear us otherwise. But Brian has been an extreme mentor in my life. Growing up with not knowing my father and being a young man, which is relative, we're about 5 years apart, stepping in as big brother initially, and then kind of taking on more of a dad role when necessary. I think that it's important. I just want to welcome you to the stream, Mr. Bowen, Brian Bowen, Uncle B.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Nice introduction also.
All right. And so I affectionately call him Uncle B. He is Uncle B. And as a matter of fact, it's not just me, but everyone that meets him in the community, he probably has thousands of people who refer to him, both NBA athletes, NFL superstars that refer to him as Uncle B. But Brian, I want to just ask you a very simple question, and it seems something that we've kind of omitted. But first of all, did you understand that you were mentoring while you were doing what you were doing, or is that just a part of your DNA?
Well, I think it's just, hello everyone, first of all, yeah. But I think it's just a part of my DNA, really, just how, I was kind of raised, how we were kind of raised with the parents that we had, John and Von Sil Bowen. They were always giving, always willing to help, and always willing to see somebody, try to better themselves. So kind of natural.
And so I think it's worth adding for those who are listening, Brian is number 10 of 10 kids. Mark, we weren't Catholic, but my grandparents sure thought we were when it came to having kids. And so, Brian, being the youngest, who were the individuals that impacted your life? Because I sincerely believe that people who become mentors or spend a great time pouring into other individuals are people who have noticed or received that same thing from other people. So who are the people that poured into you and impacted your life? And so share a little bit about that.
Well, I think, of course, my dad, And my third oldest brother, Tyrone, who passed at an early age. He was about 6 years older than myself. But, I think just when I say person, I can't really say my dad, but individuals. When you're born into a house where your father is as they call a holy roller, or a Church of God in Christ pastor or minister, and your mother is a missionary, you always are impacted by what they do for other people, the impact that has. They're always, I can remember when my father, he had a small church in Carrollton and later moved on Sears Street in Buena Vista. People would call late at night or early in the morning. It didn't really matter. And, they were never the type of people that said no. They'd bring people into the home to live with us, or marriage counseling, or just advice to people all the time. So I grew up in a situation in a home where I always saw people that were willing to help others. So it just became natural for me, I think.
I want you to talk a little bit, because I think the way the dynamics of the Bowen household are so amazing to me. You don't see it anymore. I want you to share a little bit about all of the people that would come through, and you talked about having parents who were givers and took people in. Share what it was like to be in your home, and not only to share your parents, but to share your home with so many different people, as your parents were really mentoring a way for many people out of the situations that they were in.
Right. Well, first of all, we grew up in a community in Carrollton on Sherman Street where I had a sister who lived it's kind of like a duplex, a big duplex house, if you want to call it that. A sister with 3 children who lived next door. So our houses were kind of combined. So of course we were always together. Then I had a sister that grew up down the street, and then just close relatives in every house right around us. So first of all, when you say, and we have to make it clear too that my oldest sibling is 80 years old. So that's quite a bit older than I am. So I have some siblings that I've never lived with per se, but that was made up for by the siblings that had children that were either older than myself, which there are a few of them, and I'm their uncle, and the ones that were either my age or similar in age or younger. So there were always 15, 20 people at the house at any given time, all the time. And then my parents, like I said, were very open to others, that weren't in our family, weren't connected by blood, but you had never known it. People in the neighborhood, people from the church, people that were just sent to them to live with us. I'll give you a good story about my mother, and I'll make it short. I came from football practice one day, and it was in the summertime, so it was really hot out, and summer practice and stuff, and I was hungry, hot, thirsty, very irritated. So I get home and I see a couple of those bikes outside. Back in the day, the guys that ride around on the bikes and they sell encyclopedias, like they were college kids or whatever. And race was no issue with my mother. That never even came up. She didn't care. She helped anybody. So that's how we kind of got that. So anyway, I go in and I see these 2 bikes, no big deal. And so, there's, 2 Caucasian guys in the stand with my mother, young guys, probably 18 to 21. I don't know, probably 18 to maybe 20, maybe 2 of them. And they were sitting down, and she had the Bible out, of course, gonna give you a piece of the word. And she was talking to them. I could hear, hey, hello, Ma, hey, baby. And hello to the 2 guys, no big deal. I go into the kitchen, and I get some water or whatever, and I go into the microwave or the refrigerator where my food is usually at. And I look in there, and there's no plate in there. So I'm like, Mom, where's my food at? I'm not thinking, where's my food? Maybe she put it somewhere else in the oven or something. She said, oh, baby, you're going to have to just get you something else in there because these 2 young men was working hard and they were hungry, and I gave them your food. I'm like, okay. So it didn't matter that I just came to football practice, walked home, and she gave me my food, and that was it. There was nothing to say about it. I didn't get upset because that's just how she was, And I just had to find whatever I could come up with to eat that day. And they sat there and talked, and I think I ate some cheese and crackers or something in my room. Whatever I ate, I can't remember what it was, but I know I didn't eat what everyone else had eaten because she had given that plate away. So it was just always, you're always in that mode to give and to help others, and that's just one small story. There's thousands of them, hundreds of them that I can tell you. But that's one that sticks out in my mind because my stomach is hurting and I wanted that plate. But that's just the way it was.
And Mark, I'm sure you can relate because Mark has created an almost basketball, almost football team of his own. Mark, you had 7, correct?
7 kids, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
What was that, Brian?
I said that's awesome. Yeah,
you don't see that very much anymore.
No, you don't. It's usually Mormons
anymore.
No.
Right.
But Brian, I want to ask this question because I want our listeners to know that you have literally, and it's funny. Okay, so you have mentored me and other cousins that were my age, but I've seen you mentor 10 years down the road, two individuals into the NBA, and I've seen once you were in the NBA. You working, and when I say as an NBA uncle dad, I saw you working with guys perfecting shots. Steph Curry's got a killer jumper now, but the times you would spend in the gym helping those guys get things together. I'm looking Gilbert Arenas, who was another basketball standout. You really became Uncle B. It's kind of funny, and people don't realize this, to not just everyday people. But when you got to the league and you're looking at all of these NBA stars making millions of dollars, to many of them, you became Uncle B. How does that, or where does that come from? Just a willingness, and you've talked a little bit about your family, but what drives you to continue just give, no matter what environment you're in, B?
I just like to see people achieve their goals, there's so many, like they said, there's some of the most talent, some of the best talent, should I say, excuse me, it goes to the grave, and that's saying because some people never realize, sometimes what their dreams are, what their aspirations are, what their talents are, God-given talents, that they can develop, into skill or whatever. And I just always been that type of person that I thrived on just seeing people achieve their goals, trying to reach their full potential, and that's it just came natural to me all the time. It didn't matter if it was an NBA player that I met. Hey man, you can prove your shot by doing this or whatever, just giving them advice. I just like to see people at all levels. Male, it sounds like it's all males, but females as well. I've worked with a lot of females, and I just like to see people, try to at least get a chance to achieve their goals, at the highest level that they can get. And that's not going to always be in the NFL or the NBA or something like that, college scholarship, or sometimes it's just playing in high school or pickup ball. I just always like to see people, feel like they fulfilled something that they went after. So that's kind of who I am.
When you say that, when you say what you say, you like to see people achieve their goals. Mark, you said the same thing when we were talking about, you getting ready to retire and what you would do with your time. Why does someone else's success, why is it important to you that someone else succeeds in the things that they're going to do? Because you said those very same words to me. I don't know if you remember in a conversation.
No, I do. And a lot of what Brian says rings really true. And I think again, I've thought about this, because I get the same sort of satisfaction when I mentor young people. When I was at Hemlock, I identified 4 or 5 different really young, I thought, talented people and sought to build relationships with them to help them. I think it's part of human nature. And it comes back to, without trying to get religious, and I said this on the last show, when I am most fulfilled, most satisfied, is when I'm trying to help other people and help other people be successful. When I'm least satisfied is when I'm focused on myself. And I think that's frankly at the core of human nature and, the underpinnings of most major religions. And there's wisdom in that there's satisfaction and fulfillment that's derived from helping other people be the best they can possibly be.
I think it's powerful. Just want to make a note of a couple comments that we have. Geraldine Bowen Walker, Brian, your older sister, says, you were a younger brother who in many ways seemed like the older. Even with herself, she gives you much respect. Jenny DeMoore says, I mentored this girl from my volleyball team 2 years ago. She told me that I saved her life because of me. I was shocked, but her home life was not the best. And we would talk every day and practice to keep her from not going off on the deep end. I think that is a very important point as a mentor. And this is for people who may hear this and say, hey, I'm too busy. But as a mentor, it's important to understand that in many times you may be saving someone's life. And I want to talk just really quick, Brian, and I know time is flying. It always flies by when you have a good time. But I want you to share a little bit about some individuals. Every mentor doesn't turn out and go to the NBA or do great things or NFL. Some mentors you cannot save. What do you do in those situations, and how do you keep it from being overwhelming to you?
Well, like you said, you can't save everyone, but if you feel like you did, it takes a person to want to be successful. They have to accept that, you have to hurt people's feelings sometimes, I guess. It's not always nice, and it's not going to always be peaches and cream when you try to mentor someone or try to help someone. Sometimes you're going to have to do things or say things that might hurt their feelings, and not with the intent of tearing them down, constructive, of course, so not destructive, but you, in all that you give, you give for the people and for their best. So without any expectation of something back. So I think that's if you're one of the people that always is like, oh, I did this for you and you owe me this, then you will be drained, because how sometimes they forget, but that's not why you do it. You do it to see the success that you can help them see in themselves. So I think that's one of the things that keeps you from being drained, just trying to focus on what you're trying to do as a good deed. Everyone has to have some type of philanthropy in them that I think that give back to other people. If you don't have that in you, it doesn't matter how successful you are or how much money you have. I just don't think that makes you a very good person. So I just think that you do it for the right reason, and it just kind of takes care. The rest kind of takes care of itself.
I want to ask you and Mark this question. And Mark, I'm going to start with you. How do you know what a mentor needs in order to get to the next level? How do you determine what they need?
Again, for me, it's all, again, and most of the ones people I've mentored, so mentees, are people I'm working with, and it's just spending time with them and observing them and discerning. Okay, like professionally, it's usually a professional kind of thing is where I've mentored people. That leads to more personal relationships, where then it becomes, you might advise them on more personal things, but it's always started professionally. And it's really just, again, having a close relationships with those people, observing them, watching them, and like Brian's point, being really honest with them, hopefully in a constructive way, where you see there's opportunities for them to do better or to do things differently. And, one of my big things is a father of 7 that you see professionally is people who put their work before, where it would typically kind of go with me a lot of times is people who started where it would kind of go into the more personal side is people putting work before their families. And so I would kind of jump in on that to try to push and tell them, you can work 24 hours a day. It's still going to be there the next day. So family is more important. Anyway.
Also, we're not going to be able to get to your last question, the last thing to ask you, Brian, because time is wound up. But I do want to say
it's always too
this.
short, Kareem. We need a longer show.
I do want to say this in closing. Mark, I thought I was doing great things. And Brian was that mentor that came to me and like, dude, I know that you think you're doing this, you're making this happen. He says, but you are the biggest waste of potential.
Oh.
And it got me off my square, and I started to work a little bit harder. This is all that we have for today's show. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We will definitely have you back, Brian. Mark will have more conversations of race in America. And for those of you who are listening, I want to thank you guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. I live for a day when there's no more red states or blue states, white or black, but we are you truly United Shades of Gray. God bless you. Take care of yourselves and each other. Grace and peace.